though as a maid, she wiped the floor with trembling hands, while her own son walked past her without even looking. Yes, the same son she raised with her blood, sweat and tears now lived in a mansion, and she worked there as a maid. But the most heartbreaking part, he didn't even recognize her. Her name was Margaret Lewis, a 58-year-old widow from a small town in England. Life had never been kind to her. After losing her husband in an accident, she raised her only son, Daniel, all alone. She worked double shifts, sometimes even 3 jobs, just to feed him, educate him and give him a future. There were nights she slept hungry, so her son could have a full meal. There were winters she didn't buy a coat so Daniel could afford school books. And every night before sleeping she would whisper, "Just become a good man, Daniel, that's all I want." Daniel was her world, her hope, her everything, and for years he made her proud. He studied hard, got scholarships, and eventually moved to London for higher studies. Margaret sold her last piece of jewellery just to support him. The day he left, she hugged him tightly and said, "Don't worry about me, just focus on your dreams." Smiled and replied, "I'll come back for you, Mom, I promise." Promises sometimes fade with success. Years passed. Daniel didn't just succeed, he became incredibly rich, a successful businessman, luxury cars, a massive mansion in the heart of London, a life Margaret had only dreamed of. For him, but slowly, his calls became shorter, then occasional, then completely stopped. Margaret waited every day. She kept his room exactly the same. She saved every letter he ever wrote, but the phone never rang again. And one day a neighbour came running with shocking news. "Margaret, your son, he's getting married." Her heart skipped a beat. "Married?" she whispered. No invitation, no call, no message, nothing. Still, she smiled through her tears. "Son is happy, that's enough," she said softly. But deep inside, something broke that day. Months later, Margaret lost her house due to financial struggles. With nowhere to go, no family left, no support, she made a painful decision. She packed her small bag and took a train to London, to the city where her son lived, but she didn't go to meet him. No, because she feared one thing more than poverty, rejection instead. She searched for work. Days passed, rejections piled up, until one day she found a job opening, a maid. In a luxurious mansion, she stood outside the massive gate, her hands shaking, her heart pounding. Something felt strangely familiar. But she had no idea this was not just any mansion, this was her son Daniel's house. Margaret stood frozen outside the iron gates. The mansion looked like something out of a dream. Tall white pillars, shining glass windows, luxury cars parked outside. A life she had once imagined for her son. But she never imagined she would enter it like this. As a maid, her hands trembled as she pressed the doorbell. A few seconds later, the door opened. A well-dressed woman stood there, sharp eyes, expensive clothes, cold expression. This was Sophia, Daniel's wife. She looked Margaret up and down. "You're here for the maid job." Margaret lowered her eyes. "Ma'am," smirked slightly. "You look old, can you even work properly?" Margaret swallowed her pride. "I'll try my best, I really need this job." Sophia stepped aside. "Come in." Margaret walked inside. Her feet suddenly stopped. Her eyes filled with tears. Every corner of the house screamed luxury, but something else caught her attention. A photo frame on the wall. She slowly walked closer and her heart shattered. It was Daniel, her son, standing proudly in a suit next to Sophia, smiling, happy, complete without her. Her fingers gently touched the frame. "Son," she whispered under her breath, but before she could feel anything more, Sophia's cold voice cut through the silence. "Stand there like a statue. Work starts now." Margaret quickly wiped her tears. "Yes, ma'am." That day she cleaned every corner of that mansion. The floors, the kitchen, the bedrooms, even Daniel's room. As she entered his room, her heart raced. It still smelled like him. Familiar, she slowly picked up his shirt, pressed it against her face and closed her eyes. For a moment she wasn't a maid anymore, she was just a mother. But suddenly, the door opened. Margaret froze. Footsteps echoed behind her. A deep, confident voice said, "Who in my room?" Margaret turned slowly and for the first time in years she saw him, Daniel, her son, standing right in front of her. Her eyes filled instantly, her lips trembled. "Daniel," she almost said, but the words got stuck in her throat. Daniel frowned. "Who are you?" That one question felt like a knife through her heart. She lowered her eyes quickly. I'm the new maid, sir." Looked at her for a few seconds, cold, distant, no recognition, no emotion. "Nothing." Then he simply said, "Don't touch my personal stuff, just clean and leave." He walked away just like that. Margaret stood there frozen. Her entire world collapsed in that one moment. The son she gave her life for didn't even recognize her face. A single tear rolled down her cheek as she whispered softly, "I'm right here, my son, and still so far from you." But she had no idea this was just the beginning of her pain, because in this house she wasn't just invisible. She was about to be humiliated in ways she never imagined, and someone in this house was hiding a truth that would change everything. Margaret woke up before sunrise. While the entire mansion was still asleep, she was already working. scrubbing floors, washing dishes, cleaning rooms. Her back ached, her hands burned, but she didn't complain, because every corner of that house reminded her of her son. And somehow, that pain felt comforting, but not for long. Sophia made sure Margaret never forgot her place. Every morning her sharp voice echoed through the house. "Margaret, did you clean the kitchen properly?" "Yes, ma'am." "Then why is this spot still dirty? Are you blind?" Margaret rushed back, her hands shaking. "I'm sorry, I'll clean it again." Sophia rolled her eyes. "Useless, I don't know why I even hired you." Those words hit deeper than any physical pain, but Margaret stayed silent because she needed this job, because this house was the only place where she could see her son, even if he didn't see her. Days turned into weeks. Margaret learned the routine of the mansion. Daniel left early, returned late, always busy, always distant, always unaware that his own mother was serving him food, cleaning his room, washing his clothes. One evening, Margaret was setting the dining table, her hands carefully placing the plates just like she used to do years ago when Daniel was a child. Suddenly, Daniel walked in. He sat down, scrolling through his phone. Margaret stood quietly near the table, her heart racing. Today she just wanted to hear his voice, not as sir, but as her son. She gathered courage and softly said, "Dinner is ready." Daniel didn't even look at her. "Just serve it." Margaret stepped forward, serving his food with trembling hands. For a moment, her fingers brushed against his plate and memories flooded her mind, feeding him when he was small, blowing on hot food so he wouldn't burn his mouth without realizing. She smiled faintly, but suddenly, Sophia's voice shattered the moment. "Why are you standing so close to him?" Margaret stepped back immediately. I was just serving." Sophia walked closer, her eyes filled with suspicion. "Just remember your position, you're a maid, nothing more." Remained silent, not a single word, not even a glance. That silence hurt more than Sophia. That night Margaret sat alone in the small servant room, holding an old photo of Daniel as a child. Her fingers gently tracing his tiny face, she whispered, "You used to hold my hand and say you never leave me." Her voice broke. "What changed, my son?" Tears rolled down her cheeks, but she quickly wiped them away, because tomorrow she had to wake up again and pretend that nothing was broken. But fate had other plans. One afternoon, Margaret was cleaning Sophia's room when she heard voices outside. Sophia was talking on the phone. Her tone was completely different, soft, secretive. Margaret didn't mean to listen, but one sentence made her freeze. Sophia whispered, "Don't worry, Daniel still doesn't know anything." Margaret's heart skipped a beat. "No, what?" She slowly moved closer to the door, trying to hear more, and then she heard something that made her hands go numb, but she had no idea this secret would destroy everything. Margaret's heart was pounding so loudly, she was afraid someone might hear it. She stood still, just behind the half-open door. Sophia's voice was low, but every word felt sharp. "I told you already, Daniel trusts me blindly." A pause, then she continued, "And about his mother, don't worry. She's completely out of the picture." Margaret's breath stopped. Her fingers tightened against the wall. Sophia chuckled softly. "Even if she shows up someday, he won't recognize her. It's been years." Margaret's eyes filled with tears, but this time it wasn't just pain, it was something else, fear. Sophia kept speaking. "Everything is going exactly as planned, the property, the money, everything will be in my control soon." Margaret's legs went weak. Property, money, control, what was she talking about? But before she could hear more, the sound of footsteps approached. Margaret quickly stepped back, pretending to clean the floor. The door opened suddenly. Sophia stepped out, her sharp eyes immediately locked onto Margaret. "How long have you been standing here?" Margaret's heart skipped. I just came to clean, ma'am." Sophia stared at her for a few seconds, suspicion, doubt, anger. Then she leaned closer, her voice cold and threatening. "You better not poke your nose into things that don't concern you." Margaret nodded quickly. "Ma'am." Inside, a storm had already begun that night. Margaret couldn't sleep. Sophia's words echoed in her mind again and again. "Daniel trusts me blindly. He doesn't know anything. Everything will be mine." Something was wrong, very wrong. For the first time, Margaret wasn't just a helpless mother anymore. She was worried for her son. Is Daniel in danger? She whispered to herself. The next morning, Margaret decided to observe carefully. Every move, every conversation, every small detail, and slowly, things started making sense. Daniel was always busy, but strangely all his business documents, his financial papers, even important calls, were being handled by Sophia. Margaret noticed something else too. Whenever Daniel tried to ask questions, fear would distract him, or change the topic completely. One afternoon, Margaret accidentally overheard and sounded frustrated. "Sophia, I told you I want to check the accounts myself." Sophia quickly replied, "Why don't you trust me? I'm doing everything for us." Daniel sighed. "I do trust you, but still." Sophia's tone suddenly changed, emotional, manipulative. Now I'm a stranger to you after everything I've done. Silence, then Daniel said softly, okay, forget it. Margaret stood outside listening, understanding. Her son wasn't heartless, he wasn't cruel. He was blind in love, blind in trust, blind to the truth standing right in front of him. Margaret clenched her fists, her eyes filled with determination for the first time. I may be just a maid in this house, she whispered, but I'm still his mother, and I won't let anyone destroy my son. She had no idea the truth she was about to uncover would shake her to the core, because Sophia wasn't just hiding secrets, she was hiding a past that connected directly to Margaret. And when that truth comes out, someone's world will completely collapse. That night, Margaret didn't feel weak anymore. For the first time in years, there was fire in her eyes, not for herself, but for her son. I stayed silent when he forgot me, she whispered in the dark, but I won't stay silent if someone is ruining his life. From the next day, Margaret changed. She still worked like a maid, still kept her head down, but now she was watching. Carefully one evening, she noticed something strange. Sophia was leaving the house in a hurry. Dressed differently, not like a wife going out casually, but like someone hiding something. Margaret's instincts screamed. Something wasn't right. Without thinking much, she quietly followed her. Her old feet struggled, but her heart pushed her forward. Sophia entered a cafe. Margaret stood outside, hiding behind a pillar, trying to see inside, and then she saw something that made her blood run. Wasn't alone. She was sitting with another man, laughing, comfortable, too comfortable. Margaret's hands trembled. Who is he? She moved a little closer, trying to hear their conversation. The man smirked and said, so, when are you finally taking everything from him? Sophia leaned back confidently. Soon, very soon. Margaret felt like the ground beneath her feet disappeared. Sophia continued, Daniel is too emotional, too trusting. I've already started transferring things slowly. The man laughed. After that, Sophia's lips curled into a cold smile. After that, I'm leaving him. Margaret's eyes widened in shock. Leaving him? The man nodded. Of course, why would I stay? I never loved him. That one sentence hit Margaret harder than anything before. Never loved him. Her son, who gave everything to this woman who trusted her blindly, was just a tool. Margaret covered her mouth, trying to stop herself from crying out loud, but then the most shocking line came. Sophia leaned closer and whispered, once everything is mine, even if his mother comes begging, I'll make sure they both end up on the streets. Margaret's entire body froze, her breathing stopped, her heart shattered, not just as a mother, but as a human being. Tears streamed down her face silently. How can someone be this cruel? At that moment, Margaret realized something terrifying. This wasn't just betrayal. This was a planned destruction, and her son had no idea. But what could she do? If she tells Daniel, will he even believe her, or will he just see her as a maid trying to create problems? Margaret slowly stepped back, her mind filled with fear and confusion, but deep inside, a voice whispered, if you stay silent, you'll lose him forever. Margaret wiped her tears, her face slowly turning firm. No, she whispered, I won't let this happen. She had no idea the next step she takes would either save her son or destroy her. Walked back to the mansion that night, but every step felt heavier than before. Her heart was racing, her mind was restless, because now she knew the truth, and truth is not always easy to carry. She entered quietly, the same house, the same walls, but everything felt different now. This was no longer just her son's home, it was a trap. Margaret looked at Daniel sitting in the living room, working on his laptop, calm, unaware, and her eyes filled with tears again. How do I tell you? She whispered under her breath. How do I make you see? She slowly walked toward him, her hands shaking. This was the moment. Sir, she said softly. Daniel didn't look up. Yes, Margaret gathered all her courage. I need to tell you something important. Sighed, slightly irritated. Can it wait? I'm busy. Voice trembled. It's about your wife. That one sentence made Daniel stop. He slowly looked up, his eyes sharp now. What about her? Margaret's heart pounded. This was it. She spoke carefully. Please don't misunderstand, but I think something is wrong. Frowned. What do you mean? Margaret swallowed her fear. I saw her with another man. They were talking about money, about leaving you. Silence, heavy, dangerous. Daniel stood up slowly. His expression changed completely, not shock, not fear, anger. What nonsense are you saying? Margaret's voice broke. I'm telling the truth. I heard everything. Daniel's voice rose. Enough. Margaret flinched. Do you even realize what you're saying? He continued. You're just a maid. Don't cross your limits. Those words cut deeper than anything before. Margaret's eyes filled instantly, but she didn't stop. Not this time. I'm not lying. Please just check once for your own sake. Daniel's patience snapped. I trust my wife more than some random maid. That one sentence destroyed her. Random maid. Margaret stepped back slowly, her lips trembling, her eyes searching his face, hoping, just hoping, he would see her, recognize her, feel something, but nothing came. Daniel pointed toward the door. If you ever speak about my wife like this again, you'll be fired immediately. Margaret's tears fell silently. I'm saying this for you, she whispered weakly. Daniel turned away. I don't need your advice. Just like that, he walked away. Margaret stood there, broken, again, but this time the pain was different, not because her son didn't recognize her, but because he refused to believe her. That night, Margaret cried harder than ever before. I failed as a mother, she whispered through tears. I couldn't even protect my own son. Suddenly, a thought struck her mind. If he won't believe my words, her eyes slowly filled with determination, then I'll show him the truth. She had no idea getting that proof would put her life in danger, because Sophia was not someone who forgives mistakes. Margaret didn't sleep that night, not even for a second. Her eyes were swollen, her heart was shattered, but her mind was stronger than ever. If my son won't believe my words, she whispered in the darkness, then I'll bring him the truth. The next morning, everything looked normal. Daniel left for work. Sophia sat casually in the living room, scrolling her phone, sipping coffee as if nothing was. Margaret knew behind that calm face was a dangerous plan. That afternoon, Margaret noticed something again. Sophia went into her room, locked the door, and started speaking on the phone. Margaret quietly walked toward the door, her heart beat loud. Every step risky, she gently placed her ear near the door. Sophia's voice was low but clear enough. Everything is ready, I'll transfer the final amount tomorrow. Margaret's eyes widened. Final amount, Sophia continued. After that, I'm leaving London. Tickets are already booked. Margaret's breath stopped. Tomorrow, everything was happening so soon, but then she heard something. Even laughed softly and said, by the time Daniel realizes anything, it'll be too late. Margaret's hands clenched tightly. She whispered. She quickly pulled out her old phone, her fingers shaking badly, but somehow she managed to press the record button. She held it close to the door, recording every word, every truth, every betrayal. This was it, the proof she needed. But suddenly, the door froze, her phone almost slipped from her hand. Sophia stood right in front of her, her eyes sharp, suspicious, dangerous. What are you doing here? Margaret's mind went blank. I was just cleaning. Sophia's gaze dropped to her hand. The phone. For a second, everything went silent. Then Sophia stepped closer, slowly, like a predator. Give me that phone. Margaret stepped back instinctively. No, it's nothing. Sophia's voice turned cold. I said, give it to me. Margaret clutched the phone tightly. This wasn't just a phone anymore, this was the truth, her only chance to save her son. She whispered. That one sentence changed everything. Sophia's expression darkened instantly. Without warning, she grabbed Margaret's arm harshly. You old woman. How dare you spy on me? Margaret winced in pain. Please leave me. Sophia didn't stop. She tried to snatch the phone. The two struggled, Margaret weak, trembling, Sophia aggressive, furious. And then push. Margaret lost her balance, her body hit the floor hard, her head slammed against the edge of the table. A sharp sound echoed silence. The phone slipped from her hand, still recording. A thin line of blood slowly appeared on Margaret's forehead, her eyes half open, her body motionless. Sophia stepped back, breathing heavily, her face pale. What have I done? But instead of helping, her eyes moved toward the phone, still recording, still capturing everything. And at that moment, a terrifying decision formed in her mind, because if that recording reached Daniel, everything would be over, and what she did next would decide whether Margaret survives or disappears forever. Margaret didn't sleep that night, not even for a second. Her eyes were swollen, her heart was shattered, but her mind was stronger than ever. If my son won't believe my words, she whispered in the darkness, then I'll bring him the truth. The next morning, everything looked normal. Daniel left for work. Sophia sat casually in the living room, scrolling her phone, sipping coffee as if nothing was. Margaret knew behind that calm face was a dangerous plan. That afternoon, Margaret noticed something again. Sophia went into her room, locked the door, and started speaking on the phone. Margaret quietly walked toward the door. Her heart beat loud, every step risky. She gently placed her ear near the door. Sophia's voice was low but clear enough. Everything is ready, I'll transfer the final amount tomorrow. Margaret's eyes widened. Final amount, Sophia continued. After that, I'm leaving London. Tickets are already booked. Margaret's breath stopped. Tomorrow. Everything was happening so soon, but then she heard something. Even laughed softly and said, by the time Daniel realizes anything, it'll be too late. Margaret's hands clenched tightly. She whispered. She quickly pulled out her old phone, her fingers shaking badly, but somehow she managed to press the record button. She held it close to the door, recording every word, every truth, every betrayal. This was it, the proof she needed. But suddenly, the door froze, her phone almost slipped from her hand. Sophia stood right in front of her, her eyes sharp, suspicious, dangerous. What are you doing here? Margaret's mind went blank. I was just cleaning. Sophia's gaze dropped to her hand, the phone. For a second, everything went silent. Then Sophia stepped closer, slowly, like a predator. Give me that phone. Margaret stepped back instinctively. No, it's nothing. Sophia's voice turned cold. I said, give it to me. Margaret clutched the phone tightly. This wasn't just a phone anymore, this was the truth, her only chance to save her son. She whispered that one sentence. Changed everything. Sophia's expression darkened instantly without warning. She grabbed Margaret's arm harshly. You old woman, how dare you spy on me? Margaret winced in pain. Please leave me. Sophia didn't stop. She tried to snatch the phone. The two struggled, Margaret weak, trembling, Sophia aggressive, furious. And then push, Margaret lost her balance. Her body hit the floor hard. Her head slammed against the edge of the table. A sharp sound echoed silence. The phone slipped from her hand. Still recording, a thin line of blood slowly appeared on Margaret's forehead. Her eyes half open, her body motionless. Sophia stepped back, breathing heavily, her face pale. What have I done? But instead of helping, her eyes moved toward the phone, still recording, still capturing everything. And at that moment, a terrifying decision formed in her mind, because if that recording reached Daniel, everything would be over, and what she did next would decide whether Margaret survives or disappears forever. Margaret lay on the cold floor unconscious, a thin stream of blood slowly running down her forehead, her weak body completely still, and standing above her was Sophia, breathing heavily, eyes filled with fear, not fear for Margaret, but fear of getting caught. Her gaze slowly shifted toward the phone, still lying on the floor, still recording. For a moment time froze, then Sophia rushed forward, picked up the phone, and looked at the screen. The red light was still blinking, recording everything. Every word, every truth, every crime. Her hands started shaking. No, she muttered without wasting a second. She deleted the recording, then she threw the phone against the wall. It shattered into pieces. Silence filled the room. Looked at Margaret's unconscious body, her mind racing fast. What if she wakes up? What if she tells Daniel everything? Her breathing became heavier. No, I can't take that risk. Those words were not just thoughts anymore. They were a decision. Sophia quickly grabbed her bag, pulled out her phone, and dialed a number. Hello, I need your help. Her voice was low, urgent. There, a problem, and I need it to disappear. Margaret remained still on the floor, unaware that her life was now in danger. Hours later, the mansion was silent, too silent. Daniel returned home late that evening, tired, unaware. Just like every other day, he placed his keys on the table and called out, Sophia. No response. He frowned. Sophia, still nothing. Then his eyes noticed something strange. A broken phone on the floor, pieces scattered, and just a few steps away, a faint stain on the carpet. Daniel's heartbeat slowed. Something felt wrong, very wrong. He slowly walked forward, his eyes scanning the room, and then he saw it, a small drop of blood. His breath got stuck. What is this? Suddenly a voice came from behind. Sophia, calm, composed, too calm. Oh, that, she said casually. The maid slipped and fell. I sent her away. Turned quickly. Sent her away in that condition? Sophia shrugged. It wasn't that serious. She was just being dramatic. Something inside Daniel didn't feel right. For the first time, a tiny doubt entered his mind, but before he could question further, Sophia walked closer, placing her hand gently on his shoulder. You worry too much, she said softly. Focus on your work, I'll handle everything. Just like before, Daniel stayed silent, but this time something had changed. That small doubt was about to grow into something much bigger, because somewhere, Margaret was not just hurt, she was. What Daniel would discover next would shake his entire world. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. Something felt off. The house was quiet, too quiet. And for the first time in years, his mind wasn't focused on business. It was stuck on one small thing. A maid, her trembling voice echoed in his head. I'm telling the truth, please just check once. Daniel turned in his bed, restless. Why did her words feel so real? Why did her eyes look so familiar? And then, that strange feeling grew stronger. The next morning, Daniel walked into the kitchen. Everything was clean, perfect. But something was missing, that quiet presence, that soft voice, that invisible care. The maid, he murmured. He turned to Sophia. Where is she? Sophia didn't even look up. I told you I sent her away. Frowned. Where? Sophia sighed. Why are you so concerned about a maid? That question annoyed him. I'm just asking. Sophia's tone sharpened slightly. She left. End of story. Daniel was convinced. For the first time, he decided to check things himself. He walked to the security room. Opened the CCTV footage. Sophia froze, her eyes widened slightly. Daniel, what are you doing? But he did answer. The footage played. Morning, afternoon, everything looked normal until the moment, walking towards Sophia's room. Then a few minutes later, the door opening suddenly. Daniel leaned closer to the screen, his heart starting to race. The footage showed. Stepping back, Sophia grabbing her, and then falling hard to the ground, not moving. Daniel's eyes widened in shock. His breath stopped. What is this? He turned slowly, looking at Sophia. Her face had lost all color. Daniel's voice trembled. You said she slipped. Is not slipping. His voice echoed through the room for the first time. Anger. Real tried to speak. Daniel listened to me, but he stepped back. You listen. Voice broke slightly. What did you do to her? Sophia's eyes filled with fake tears. It was an accident. She attacked me first. Lying, that one shout shook the entire house. Daniel's hands were shaking now, his mind racing, his trust collapsing, and suddenly Margaret's words echoed again. I saw her with another man, telling the truth. Everything started connecting. Daniel stepped back slowly, his face filled with realization and regret. I didn't believe her, he whispered that moment. Something inside him broke, but the biggest shock was yet to come, because Daniel still didn't know who that maid really was, and when he finds out, it will be too late to undo. His biggest stood frozen, his eyes still locked on the CCTV screen, the moment repeating again and again in his mind. The push, the fall, the silence. His hands trembled, his breathing became heavy. How could I not see this? He whispered for the first time. The truth was clearer than ever. Sophia, the woman he trusted blindly, was hiding something dark, but his heart was suddenly thinking about something else, someone else. The maid, her voice, her eyes, her pain. Why did it all feel so familiar? Daniel quickly rushed out of the room. I need to find her, he said firmly. Sophia panicked. Daniel, wait, you're overreacting. But he didn't stop. Where is she? He shouted. Sophia stayed silent. That silence was the final answer. Daniel immediately called the police. Hours later, the truth began to unfold. Sophia had called someone to secretly remove Margaret from the house. She didn't want any evidence, any witness, any risk. Margaret was found in a small abandoned clinic, barely conscious, weak, broken. When Daniel reached there, his heart stopped. He saw her lying on the bed, covered in bandages, so fragile, so helpless. Something inside him shattered completely. He slowly walked closer, his eyes filled with tears. Why does this hurt so much? He whispered. The doctor looked at him and said something that changed everything. She kept taking your name again and again. Froze. She was whispering, Daniel. My son. Time stopped. Daniel's entire body went numb. What did you say? The doctor repeated softly. She called you her son. That one sentence felt like lightning striking his soul. Daniel stepped back, his mind exploding with memories. Her eyes, her voice, her care, the way she served him food, the way she looked at him, the way she said, saying this for you. His legs gave up. He fell to his knees. No, this can't be. Tears streamed down his face uncontrollably. Mom. He slowly looked at her again, not as a maid, but as a mother. His mother, the woman who gave him everything, stood in front of him all this time, and he didn't even recognize her. I called her a random maid. Voice broke completely. I didn't believe her. I pushed her away. Daniel cried like a child, holding her hand tightly. I'm sorry, Mom, so sorry. Margaret's fingers moved slightly. Her eyes slowly opened. She looked at him, her vision blurry, but her heart recognized him instantly. Daniel. She whispered weakly. That one word destroyed him completely. Yes, Mom, it's me. He held her hand against his face, crying uncontrollably. I'm here, please don't leave me. Margaret smiled faintly. Even in pain, even after everything, her love remained the same. I never left you, she whispered. I was always here. Daniel broke down again. Meanwhile, Sophia was arrested, her truth exposed. Her betrayal revealed everything she planned turned into her downfall. Karma doesn't stay silent forever. Days later, Margaret slowly recovered. This time, she didn't return as a maid, she returned as a mother, respected, loved, honored. Daniel changed completely. He left his arrogance behind and chose something more important, his mother. One evening, he sat beside her and said, Mom, I had everything, but I still lost the most important person. Margaret smiled softly. You didn't lose me. You just forgot me for a while. Held her hand tightly. I'll never forget again. This time he meant it. Broken final message. Sometimes we run so fast behind success that we leave behind the people who gave us the strength to run. Never ignore the hands that once held you when you couldn't walk. Hey subscribers and non-subscribers, if this story touched your heart, broken heart, if even for a moment you felt Margaret's pain, if Daniel's realization made your eyes tear up, then don't just scroll away. Backhand index pointing right, show some love. Backhand index pointing right, drop a like. Backhand index pointing right, and most importantly, give this story some hype. Red heart. Every hype from you gives me the motivation to bring more such emotional and powerful stories for you. This is Wandering Pages, where every story has a soul. And here's something special. Fire. If this video gets 50 hype, I will bring the asterisk book 2 asterisk of this story very soon. A deeper story, more emotions, and a truth that will shake you again. So don't wait. Your one click can continue this journey. Red like, hype, support, because stories live only when you feel them.